Hey everyone, welcome to Coding with Roche, where we break down coding like pros and make web design simple and fun. If you are just starting out or you are curious about how websites are built from scratch, you are in the right place because coding is fun. In today's video, you are diving into the basics of HTML and web design, the foundation of every website you see online. We'll cover what HTML is, how it works, and how it fits into the bigger picture of building a website. So grab your laptops, open your favorite code editor, and let's get coding. And hey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss a chance to code be rich. So, we're going to dive into what HTML really is, right? So, when someone says what is HTML, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, basically the language that makes up what websites. So, every single web page or every website is built with HTML and CSS. But some advanced programming languages use different stuff. But for now, we want to focus on what HTML, what is what a data sub language. Right. So now, first question is, how do you start with HTML? Right. So basically, to start with HTML, you first need to have an IDE. And the question is, what does IDE stands for? An IDE stands for an integrated development environment, or what people call it what a text editor. Right. Basically, it's like picture what soldiers use for war. Basically, what soldiers go for war with, they go with their guns and stuff like that. Farmers have their what? Their farming tools, cutlasses, mowers, and stuff like that. Doctors have their instruments, needles, and stuff. When it comes to developers, we have something we call an IDE. This stands for an integrated development environment, or most people call it a text editor. So the first thing you need to basically start creating a website is to first have a text editor. There's so many text editors in the market, but the most used one will be what Visual Studio Code. So begin with, we go to our browser, and we just download Visual Studio Code. So let's take it from the top. I'm just gonna type download VS Code. You pick the first link, it takes you to the official website where you pick the appropriate software for your operating system. I'm on the Windows machine, so I'm going to go for the Windows device. I'm just going to run through the installation. It begins to download. Yeah. So when it gets downloaded, right? So let's say when it comes to your downloads, we have your what? The IDE right here, VS Code. So click on it and just run through the installation. This is basic to install. Read the prompts, agree to the license, click on next, 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 then install. Then you begin like that. Yeah, I already have my install, so I'm just going to jump straight over. Then the next thing I'm going to do, I like to first create the folder structure where basically I could keep what all my resources or all my coding files. So I'm going to go ahead. Oh, let me just link this. So I'm going to go ahead to create a new folder, which I'm going to name as coding with Roach. Coding with Roach. The purpose of this folder is to hold all my learning resources, all my learning materials, all my code. Yeah, let me just change the color. Okay, let me just change the icon a little bit. Yeah, so let's get with this. Okay, so I'm just going to create a folder structure first. The folder structure allows me to organize my code so I can keep all my code in the exact same place. So I'm going to open the code with which folder and I'm going to go ahead to create a new folder. I'm going to name it as, let's go for one third, introduction. Introduction. So yeah, so now let's see. So the first thing I'm going to do is launch our ID. In this case, our ID is Visual Studio Code, or we'll launch our text editor. Okay, so a text editor is usually going to look something like this. When you run it for the first time, you pick the right team feature, you say dash straight into it. Now, the very first feature I'm going to enable is auto save because I like my ID to automatically save every single piece of code I type. In HTML or whatever code you type, you're required to save it before you run it. So I'm just going to turn on auto save feature. I'm going to click on this over here, go to settings, and the first thing I get to see is the auto save feature, which is this. I'm going to basically choose after delete, meaning what the moment I type in my key, it's going to save whatever code I have automatically, right? So we have our folder structure set up, we have our VS Code opened, and the next thing I'm going to do is to create a web page or basically a web file to begin with HTML. Now, how do you go about that? So go to file and create a new text file. Then I'm going to save the text file with the extension .html. Now, .html is the file extension for every single piece of HTML code you're about to write. File extension basically depicts what kind of file it's supposed to be. So for HTML files or for web files, the file extension is supposed to be .html. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this file. I'm going to navigate to the folder created in desktop coding with Broach, introduction, and I'm going to save this file as index.html. All in our cases with the file extension. So I have index.html on file type saved. I'm going to save this, then I get this. So yeah, our file gets created. Minimize this, go to my folder structure. What's the introduction? Now I want to open the introduction folder. I'm going to see a file called index, but it looks a little bit weird because it looks like a web browser image. When it comes to coding in HTML, right? Every file you create with the file extension .html, the system picks the default browser of your system as the word icon for your file. And somebody's going to ask, okay, so if the file is like my browser, how am I supposed to see or am I supposed to run it? So let's say what file over is both your output file and at the same time or your at the same time your text file, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close the text editor and then let's see what happens. Okay, so back in my introduction folder, right? I have the file called index, the file we just created with the file extension .html. I'm going to run this. When I run this, I get a blank page because currently there's no piece of code in our text file. So blank page. Now, if I want to get back to what the file is, I'm just going to right click. I'm going to choose open with and I'm going to choose Visual Studio Code. This is going to show me the content of this file in my IDE. So, okay. Okay, so when I right click on the index file and I choose open with Visual Studio Code, it shows me the contents of this file, which is currently blank. I could choose to go down to coding. It works. So we type this into our ID, we'll go back to our folder structure, we run this, and this gets displayed onto our console. So yeah. Now, whatever you type into your ID here will kind to be displayed onto your screen. I will type a little bit of gibberish this way. Save it, and then come back to my browser, refresh, and it's going to get displayed onto my screen. Now, the next thing I'm going to learn before the video ends is basically the structure of a web page. Now, every web page you create should have a basic structure, it's like a support structure or a support system. Now, let's picture a human being with a skeleton. Now, the skeleton basically gives a structure to a person, gives a structure to a person. Now, with that skeleton or with that skeletal system to an individual, basically, here it's like going to be like a triangle, right? But just a little bit nasty. So now, when it comes to a web page or let's say it's about CSS or web design, every single web file you create, it's supposed to have a structure or basically, let's say, the building blocks to the web page, which I call the fundamental tags. It's like creating a sculpture but adding the support system to it, or basically a human being with a skeleton. So in this case, I want to treat our web page as a human being, and our human being needs to have a skeletal system as a support structure. In this case, I call that system a fundamental tag. Now, to generate the fundamental tag, this is a shortcut key to use in Visual Studio Code to generate a fundamental tag. So I'm just going to press the shift one to give an exclamation sign. I'm going to press the enter. Then I get the basic structure for HTML or basically for the website. So this becomes one basic structure to basically create a website. Since we have the auto save feature already created, it saves it like that. I'm going to go into the body tag over here and I want to type welcome to coding with Roach. Coding with Roach. I want to change this title document over here to, let's say, coding with Roach. Yeah, I want to go back to the browser. I want to refresh this, and I get to see coding with Roach. Then welcome to Coding with Roach. So, guys, this is gonna be an introduction to, or let's say, introduction to what HTML is, how to basically start with HTML, how to create a text file, folder structure, add a little bit of code to it, save it, run it, and see the output. Thank you all for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video. In the next video, we're going to dive into the fundamental tasks and what each tag does, what are tags, and also look at something called basic tags and basic structure for HTML. Thank you. Don't miss the next video. And it's always fun coding with Rich. See you in the next video. Bye.